I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't love the term personal branding. I think it's kind of cringe at this point. I think it's been bastardized by a lot of gurus and growth experts on these social media platforms. But the truth is, posting content from your personal account as a distribution channel for your startup and a marketing channel for your startup is very effective. And I would highly recommend it. It's what we do for a lot of our clients. So I want to walk you through how to approach personal branding or whatever you want to call it in a way that isn't cringe, that's pretty easy to do, and also is going to lead to the outcome that we actually want, not just meaningless follower growth and impressions and stuff that doesn't translate into actual pipeline. So if you want to generate pipeline from your personal brand, or again, whatever you want to call it, watch till the end of this video. You'll have a complete roadmap in place. Now, first thing we got to get clear on is why personal branding? Why are we posting content from your personal account as a founder or a C-suite at a B2B startup versus posting it from a company page primarily? And it really just has to do with the performance of the content. Like, I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to posting from the personal account or a company account. I actually like posting from company accounts better. I think it's a bit more fun. But personal content is just performing a lot better right now. Go and look on LinkedIn, scroll the timeline for a little bit. Look at how many personal pages come up and how many posts from personal accounts you see versus post from company pages. It's like 6 to 1, 7 to 1. It's insane. And it changes from week to week. But generally, there is just way more content being surfaced from personal pages versus company pages. And people generally want to follow creators, another term that's been bastardized, but like creators and people on these platforms versus faceless company pages. Like when I think about my behavior, a lot of the accounts that I follow and keep up with the most are people, not faceless brand accounts. And this is especially true when you're an early stage or growth stage company and you don't have a ton of brand recognition. Once your brand is big enough, or your company's big enough, you might be able to get away with just posting on your company page. But as you're gaining momentum, and especially if you're starting from scratch on social channels like X and LinkedIn, you just don't have the brand equity to where you can post content on your company page and just hope for the best. Even big companies like Airbnb have been starting to use their CEO and their founders' personal accounts as distribution channels for launches. Like if you look at Airbnb's winter release in 2023, the main post for that launch on Twitter or X came from Brian Chesky's account. And if you look at the brand account post for that same launch, it got literally 1% of the visibility that the post from Chesky's account did. So when it comes to why personal branding, I'm purely looking at it from an objective point of view. If company accounts perform better, I would funnel all of my attention over there because at the end of the day, I care about generating pipeline, not whether it's my account or my agency's account or my client's, the founder's account or their company page. I want to get results. And right now, the best way to get results is to post from your personal page. Now, if you're running a B2B startup or if you work for a B2B startup, what platform should you be focused on with your founder's personal brand? And there's two, LinkedIn and X. You don't need to do Instagram. You don't need to worry about TikTok. YouTube, I would suggest if they're good on video. I think that falls outside of the realm of social content, though. When it comes to social platforms, LinkedIn is by far and away the best platform for B2B companies. It's the obvious choice, followed closely by X/Twitter, whatever you're calling it at this point. The way I like to view those two platforms is LinkedIn is like the conference that you attend. X is like the cocktail party that you attend after the conference where you build more like one-on-one relationships and kind of just hang out with people in a more casual setting. Both are very important. What I'm finding right now on X is it's a little bit more difficult to build a larger audience over there, but you can build a lot of quality one-on-one relationships, and you don't need a large audience to generate a lot of value from the platform. Like I've built a lot of my agency and the revenue that we've generated off of relationships that I've made primarily on Twitter and X. Whereas LinkedIn is a bit more straightforward to build an audience on there. And it also translates very well to lead generation because a lot of decision makers for B2B companies use LinkedIn. So far and away, those two platforms are the ones I would recommend. If you want to repurpose to Instagram, you can. It might be a smart play in the long run, but it's just not that great. And it's going to take a while to get going over there. And especially if you're not great on video, I would just recommend sticking with LinkedIn and Twitter. Okay, you understand why this matters, why you need to be posting from your personal account, what platforms to post on. Now, what the heck do you post on those platforms? The framework I like to use for this is a content funnel. I got this idea from my good friend Alex Garcia. He writes Marketing Examined, one of the best marketing newsletters that I've ever read. I'd recommend signing up for it. But I got this idea from him. It's called a content funnel. You have your top of funnel content, you have your middle of funnel content, and you have your bottom of funnel content. This isn't new when it comes to like SEO content. Like it's a pretty old idea, but applying it to social content is what I want to talk about here. Your top of funnel content is going to be stuff that generates broad reach and engagement and mostly pleases the algorithm. A lot of your LinkedIn growth gurus or those types of people will lean really heavily into this content. And this is where they go wrong because that's all they do. And they end up with an audience of 100,000 people that will never buy from them or will buy like $17 PDF guides, not a high ticket service or software. That said, this content is needed and good because it generates, it gets you favored by the algorithm. That's the best way to describe it. Because if you're only posting bottom of funnel content, which we'll get into in a second, you're going to be posting a lot about your product, but it's not going to generate a huge audience. Top of funnel content fills the room for you to sell to. An example of a piece of top of funnel content would be like, let's say you're a software founder, but before you started your software, you built up an e-commerce brand to 8 figures and then sold it, and you got this massive exit, and that's awesome. A piece of top of funnel content might be talking about like 5 things I wish I knew before I started my last company that sold for $100 million or something like that. That's not directly related to your software or product that you're selling right now. And it might not even be related directly to your industry, but it's a compelling story and a compelling post that's going to get a lot of attention, especially on a platform like LinkedIn. Like those types of posts crush. Like another way to lean into top of funnel content on LinkedIn for B2B companies is by telling like broad business stories. You see these a lot by when these thought leaders will write a post about the founding story of a company that everyone knows, like the founding story of Airbnb or the founding story of Nike, or like a little known story about Nike, or something like that, where you're telling a business story that, again, might not even be related to your specific industry where your ICP is in, but it's a way to get broad attention because a lot of people on LinkedIn are going to be interested in business stories. So they're going to engage with it. And especially if it's compelling and it's a good post, it has a large total addressable market. So like when you're building a startup, you think about your TAM, your total addressable market. If you have a small TAM, you're not going to have a venture outcome for a startup. But if you have a large one, there is that possibility of scaling. Same thing with content. If your piece of content has a small TAM, it's not going to get a ton of reach and engagement. But if it has a large TAM, it will get a lot of reach or have the potential to get a lot of reach. That said, you don't want to go too far in that direction because, again, if you just only do broad content, you're going to end up with a low quality audience that doesn't ever want to buy from you. Now, moving a step deeper in that content funnel is your middle of funnel content. This is stuff that's still broad enough that it's not just product related, it's not just sales related stuff. But it's more specific to your industry. So an example of this could be if you're a founder of an email marketing SaaS for Shopify brands, like instead of just posting super broad business related content that isn't specific to e-commerce or D2C or anything like that, you could post thought leadership around like email marketing strategies for Shopify brands or specific personal stories that have to do with e-commerce and email marketing in that industry in particular. So the appeal is still broad enough that you're going to get engagement and it's going to lead to follower growth and visibility and engagement. But it's niche enough that we can be pretty confident that anyone who's engaging with this and finds this helpful is within your target audience. And typically this type of content is not super like sales pitch heavy. So again, it still functions to build an audience and build that follower account and increase the amount of people that are seeing your stuff. And again, filling that room so that when you do hard pitch or make a hard CTA, you have people that are following you that you've provided value to that you can then convert into customers or newsletter subscribers or whatever that next step in the funnel is for you. So this video that you're watching right now is an example of middle of funnel content. It's not super broad, But I'm also not pitching you on my agency services, by the way. Actually, if you do want those, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to apply for the wait list. But the purpose of this video is not to pitch you, or it's not a VSL for my agency. It's just adding value to people within my ICP. So if you find this video helpful, it's because you're probably in my target audience. Now, the last step of that funnel, before we move on to the next section, the last step of that content funnel is going to be bottom of funnel content. This is pretty straightforward. This is where most B2B companies start with in social content. And this is your case studies, your product updates, stuff that's more sales heavy and that's going to take people that are in your audience that are close to buying anyway and moving them over that last few steps. So for example, if you published a case study of a specific customer on your site, you might take that case study and distribute it onto LinkedIn and format it in a way that's going to perform well, but it's still very much bottom of funnel. Or if you announced a new product feature, you might announce that you rolled that out on LinkedIn or on X. And again, the TAM, the total addressable market for this type of content, is very small in most cases. Unless you have a product that's just like revolutionary, like ChatGPT, where if they announce a new feature, it goes viral instantly. Most people don't have a product like that. Like 99.9% of people do not have a product like that. If you're announcing like feature updates or stuff like that, it's probably not going to go that viral. There are ways that you can do those things and execute feature launches and rollouts in a way that will perform well enough on social. That's a topic for a different video. But generally, that bottom of funnel content is not meant to go insanely viral. So you have top of funnel to generate visibility and get you kind of that favor in the algorithm. Middle of funnel is where the bulk of your content will be, which is meant to build an audience, but also make sure that specific person who's seeing it is in your ICP. That bottom of funnel content is the more product related stuff, launches, case studies, more sales heavy content. And the way I would think about splitting this up is I would say about 10 to 15%, maybe up to 20 could be that bottom of funnel content, but you don't want to go super heavy into that, especially early on, because the goal early on is to build up goodwill and build up that audience on the social platforms. So early on, bottom of funnel should only make up 10 to maybe 20% of your content max. The other, say 60, 70% should be that middle of funnel content, which is meant to build an audience, but making sure that the audience you're building is an audience that's full of people and decision makers within your ICPs, your ideal customer profile. That final 10 to 20%, and there's some variability there. So if it doesn't add up to exactly 100%, like don't come at me in the comments, but that last bit of content should be top of funnel content. You want to do it occasionally, so that way you can get a nice little boost in the algorithm and get a lot of visibility. And it's a good button that you can press to get a ton of impressions or a ton of engagement, or maybe rack up some easy follower growth. But you don't want to lean too heavily into the top of funnel content, because that's going to dilute your follower quality and just kind of defeat the purpose of building the social media presence in the first place. Now, you understand why personal branding is important and the ROI it can generate. You understand what platforms to be active on. You understand how to construct your content funnel and have a rough idea of what exactly to post. I'll make some future videos going into like specific content types. If you have any questions around that, let me know in the comments. But that should give you a good idea of the direction to head in. Now, how often do you post? Do you need to post 5 times a day? Like is Gary Vee's telling me to post 75 times a day across 7 different platforms? Like, what do I do? And the answer is pretty simple. I'll split this up into 2 directions. One is sort of a starter cadence. So if you're just getting your presence off the ground and you're either doing it yourself or you have someone on your marketing team whose responsibility it will be to produce content for your personal accounts, but they're also splitting time across several different responsibilities. So your time is pretty limited. I'll give you one option for that. And I'll give you the more advanced option as well if you want to really maximize the momentum that you can gain on these platforms as early as possible. So the starter cadence would be 1 time per day on weekdays on LinkedIn. This is what I actually recommend with most of my clients as we like ramp them up, especially if you're starting from scratch. 1 time a day on weekdays on LinkedIn is a good enough cadence that you're consistent, but you're not overdoing it to the point where your audience is getting overwhelmed or you're burning yourself out or you're burning your content marketer or social media manager or whoever is making the content out. On Twitter, I'd recommend 1 to 2 times per day, or on X, I'd recommend 1 to 2 times per day. Again, consistent enough, you're not going to burn yourself out. you should see results if you keep that cadence up over time. Now, as you gain skill and build the muscle of content creation, and it becomes quicker and easier for you to generate content ideas, write the content ideas, film the content ideas, just you become a content machine, which will happen as you dial in your skill more and more. I would recommend ramping up that LinkedIn content cadence to about 2 times per day. More than twice a day, you don't really get any benefit. You hit this point of diminishing returns, but I think there is benefit to either daily posting twice a day, or on some days throughout the week posting twice a day. Um, just ramping up that content cadence. One way I recommend doing this is not by writing out this essay of a post for every single post, but an easy way to increase content cadence is to just take, like, for example, if you post a one-liner on Twitter, you could take a screenshot of that, post it on LinkedIn. Super easy way to repurpose content that increases the output on both platforms. Again, that's probably a topic for a different video. But you can scale up to 2 times per day on LinkedIn. And then on X, it's pretty unlimited. Like, if you want to be chronically online and post all day, be my guest. I'm probably a little bit too online. That said, it has a very direct impact on my business, so it's fine. As a founder of a B2B SaaS company, I wouldn't recommend being chronically online all day if you're the one writing your content. Like, you have plenty of other things to do within your business that are just as important, if not more important, than posting content to social. But if you find that your skill is improving when it comes to content creation and you enjoy the process, lean into it and you can increase your cadence a bit. And there are plenty of ways to increase cadence without adding a ton of time to your content creation. The other piece of advice I'd want to give here with personal branding is, just because it's your personal account, don't be afraid to have a team that helps either create the content for you or supplement your own content creation. And this isn't a pitch for my agency, like whether it's in-house or with another agency or with our agency, I don't care. But a lot of founders get precious around the idea of, like, oh, like, I think it's kind of cringe to build a personal brand or have a ghostwriter or have someone creating content for me or whatever you want to call it. And in that case, I think you have to be honest with yourself. Like, is your personal account on social, like, for your own creative expression, or is it a distribution channel for your company? I don't think there's a right or wrong answer there, but if you're using it as a distribution channel for your company and to, like, generate pipeline and revenue off the back of it, I think there's a lot of value in having a team around you to help you ideate, produce, and distribute content. And again, this could be an in-house hire, like a content marketer or a social media manager. This could be a freelancer. This could be an agency. I don't care how you approach it. But once you get a little bit of momentum and get a taste of what having a social media presence can do for you, instead of requiring more and more time from yourself, just like any other aspect of the business, you might consider delegating it. And this is going to allow you to increase the content output without having to spend all day making content. Because the reality is, for most founders of software companies or SaaS companies, content is not the only thing that you have to worry about. There are other things within your business that are going to require time, energy, and attention. And you don't want to leave your content output up to the fluctuations in, like, creative motivation, the fluctuations in time availability. So having resources around you to amplify your content, and done right, it doesn't really require that team to come up with things on your behalf. It's more so just taking the ideas in your head and amplifying them is a great way to continue to take advantage of this. So again, whether you hire someone in-house, whether you have a freelancer or an agency, don't be afraid, or, like, don't get too precious around your personal account. Again, if you're just using your personal account for artistic expression or creative expression, whatever you want to call it, then that's fine. But if you're watching this video and you've watched all the way to the end, I imagine that you want to generate revenue and, like, generate pipeline. A lot of the founders I talk to, they come to me and they're like, dude, I'd rather just not be on social media at all. Like, I have no desire to be public online, but I see the value in this. If that's you, then get a team around you and get the systems in place to be able to sustain this level of effort and output. And then as you prove out that it works, you can invest more resources into it. So if you have any questions about this whole setup, like the content funnel or platform selection or why, again, personal branding even matters. I need to come up with a different word because, again, personal branding, I think, has just been absolutely bastardized. But if you have any questions about this, let me know in the comments down below. If there are any topics or offshoot videos that you want me to create off the back of this, let me know. My goal is to build out a just complete library of everything that you need to know to build out a content engine for your B2B startup. Yeah, just hit me up in the comments or on social. And I'll be posting content here on YouTube at least once a week. So subscribe if you're new around here. And I will see you in the next video. I think I did that outro right. So yeah, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you in the next one.